I am live. All right, let me get live on Instagram. You know the drill. Cause got to get live on all my spaces and all my places. There we go. You know the drill. Okay. So gotta tell all my folks, all my tweets. All right, I'm letting everybody know that I'm live. Oops. Somehow that copy and paste did not work. So let's try that again. Okay, there we go. Okay, just letting everybody know that I'm live. Because some people tune in, I'm live, and then some people watch on the replay. So just want to let everybody know that I'm here, and then we will jump on in. All right, so okay, that's my actual channel. That's why that look is delayed. I'm like, wait a minute. Okay, now there we are. All right. So the title of today's weekly live comic chat is Fantastic Farce and Other Sundries. Fantastic Farce and Other Sundries. Let me start with them other sundries. Okay. Uh, Something big politically happened this week, but I don't talk about politics on any of my social media, so we're gonna let that go. The other thing that happened in comics this week was that they introduced the first Black Panther that's a white guy, the son of T'Challa. And now he's going to be a white guy, so now we're going to have a white man as Black Panther, which was a meme for a long time, but now that's turning into a real thing. That's so ridiculous to me until that's why I don't feel the need to talk about it. Because I made a tweet about it too. How can you not understand that they're just trolling you at this point? There's no more storytelling. There's no more honoring the characters. There's no more honoring the legacy. There's no more honoring Stan Lee and Jack Kirby and all the work that they did. All that's gone now, y'all. What they are now is, I made a tweet about that this week. What they are now is they're professionally trolling you. And so once I saw that didn't do anything but make me laugh. So I made a tweet about it and I called it the peak of wokeness. It's the moment when wokeness hit its peak. Because you can't get any more peak woke than the Black Panther, the symbol and the leader of the nation of Wakanda, as Chadwick Boseman would say, for generations. Why can't I get this thing off my lip? Why does that? Why does that happen? Wait, as soon as I get on camera. Anyway, I'm gonna keep chewing until I get out. There we go. So anyway, so like Chadwick Boseman said, the Black Panther has been leader and protector of Wakanda for generations. So now all of a sudden they have to put a white guy. They have to put a white guy in the Black Panther costume. So that to me, I'm just mentioning it because it happened, but that to me is not really newsworthy. That's just peak wokeness. That's how much more proof do you need again that they're just trolling you? I mean, so whatever. It's just funny to me now. It's just funny to me now they could take something as powerful and as great as comic books and do that. I do this broadcast and I do this channel because I love comics and I love comic books and I love superheroes, and I have since I was very little. And if you know my story, that one of the things I learned to read on was superheroes and comic books. So I love them. So I would like to share my love and pay that forward and pass that love on to other people, to younger generations, to people that maybe have not grown up reading comics because they're awesome when they're written well. Okay. So that's why I do what I do. I'm not trying to troll people. My channels, I want them to be not just commentary, but also educational. I don't want, to just say what I have to say. I want to educate. I want people to leave better, knowing more than they did when they first listened to me. Okay. Having said all that, that's what's going to lead us into talking about the fantastic farce today, which is just a shame. So much has happened with this Fantastic Four movie that drops in a month, by the way. Drops in a month. So much has happened since the last time I talked about this. I'm like, I've got to talk about this again. So I looked at all the different things I wanted to talk about, and I discovered it'd be easier if I just pull up a tweet for each one, because I do think I saved a tweet for each one of the topics I want to cover. So I'll just pull that up, and that'll make it easier to cover all the stuff I want to cover. So let's start off with that. And we're going to start off with this right here. So let me move that, and let me get myself down here so that's easy for you to see. You see that? First thing I want to talk about is the Fantastic Four has the most epic villains in all of Marvel. You may not know that. You may not know that the FF has that extensive of a rogues gallery, because all you're ever going to hear about is Doom and Galactus. Doom and Galactus. But there's Hate Monger. There's Mole Man, which is actually the first villain that they face. There's the Skrulls, and then there's a Super Skrull. The Super Skrull is one of my favorite Marvel villains. The Super Skrull was genetically re-engineered to have all the powers of the Fantastic Four. Now, you see Johnny kind of do that in the second Alba Evans movie, Rise of the Silver Surfette, 2007. At the end, you see Johnny do that because his molecules got scrambled. But there actually is a villain, which we will probably never see on screen, the Super Skrull, that is genetically redesigned to have all the powers of the Fantastic Four. And he's one of my favorite villains. Also, Namor, the Submariner, not that foolishness they put in the Black Panther movie, Namor, not that. The actual Submariner, the one that says Imperious Rex, he was actually introduced in the pages of the Fantastic Four. They have the Frightful Four, they have Molecule Man, they have the Red Ghost, and the Super Apes. They have so many different incredible villains. My favorite villain besides Doom is Annihilus. I love Annihilus because Annihilus has little man syndrome. Annihilus is kind of crazy, but he always wants to invade the dimension that Reed and them come from. But Annihilus is the demigod of the negative zone. So I love Annihilus. I love Annihilus. I always have. The Inhumans were introduced to the Fantastic Four. And then there's the Impossible Man. The Impossible Man is like Mixyez-Pitalik for Superman and Batmite for Batman, a little interdimensional imp with these, reality warping powers that likes to cause them problems. That's Impossible Man. So I'm saying there's so many different villains to choose from when you're talking about Marvel's first family. And it's a shame that you're never really going to see them in live action because they're just going to keep giving you Doom and Galactus, Doom and Galactus, Doom and Galactus. Because for some reason, that's what movies do. They only take maybe the top two villains, except with Batman, we got a few more. The most villains we've ever seen on Batman is Batman 66, the Adam West show, because they even made up some villains that are unique to that show. And then Batman, the animated series, they also made up some villains, but you got the biggest spread of Batman's Rogues Gallery. So, but with the Fantastic Four in live action, you're never going to see all of these incredible villains. I just wanted to show them to you so you know that there's more to choose from than what we've seen so far. Okay, so that's my first little topic. Next thing I want to talk about. Now, I've talked about this before, so I'm just going to hit on it briefly. But there's always somebody who's going to show up and scream, but it's in the comics. But it's in the comics, but it's in the comics. Yes, there have actually been two different female Silver Surfers in the comics, and one of them was Shalabal. That's not her. That's the other one. But the point I'm trying to make is they showed up for a couple of panels. They showed up for maybe 4 issues, and then that was it. So the movies are going to pick the most obscure, most ridiculous, most unheard of versions of a character and then try to justify it by saying, but it's in the comics. And that's what they've been doing with female Silver Surfer. The Silver Surfer is Norrin Radd, a man, and his story is very poignant and specific. And so they're just going to circumvent all that and make Silver Surfer one of the female versions, even though everybody has known and loved and expected Norrin Radd all this time. Okay. Yeah, okay, whatever. So I already made a whole video on that, so you know about that. So I know different people feel different ways about that, but some people just like to be contrary. And so people like that don't bother me because I know they're just trying to be contrary. They just want to fight because they like to fight. They don't actually have anything good to say. They're not actually fighting for a cause. See, if you're going to fight, you should have a cause. If you're going to fight, you should have a reason. But contrary people, just like somebody showed up on my timeline today, people that have, maybe like, 3 followers and they don't tweet at all, or they have maybe like 10 tweets, they come out of retirement, they come out of the woodwork to come try to fight me on my timeline. Some of those people are just sock accounts. They're people I already know that don't have the nerve to just face me as themselves. They just think I don't know that. And some of those people don't do anything but troll because they've never talked to me before. They just show up to criticize. That is laughably ridiculous. So it's always somebody like that who's going to say, but it was in the comics. Female Silver Surfer, both versions have the smallest amount of time in the comics. Silver Surfer is Norrin Radd. So anyway, like I said, I did a whole video on that. So now let me show you this. Now, those of you that know me know this, but I'm going to show you this anyway. This is my favorite what if version of the Fantastic Four. This is my favorite version. It's from What If number 6 from volume 1, the original one, a run of What If. And it was, what if the Fantastic Four got different powers? Now, I know that the idea that the cosmic rays changed them according to their personalities was maybe a little bit of a retcon. Maybe that wasn't always the idea. But as time has gone on, the Fantastic Four have evolved to the point where that has become a part of the conversation. That when the cosmic rays hit them, it magnified a certain portion of their personality. And that's why they turned into who they turned into. So Reed was always stretching beyond his abilities, reaching for the stars, reaching for something greater than himself. And Johnny was quick-tempered and a hothead, and Sue was kind of shy and kind of didn't feel like she was seen, paid attention to enough by Reed in particular. And Ben always had a rough exterior. He was always kind of gruff in his manner. So they say that's why they got the powers that they did. So what if number 6 is the same idea, but what if they got different powers? So Reed turns into a living brain. His name is Big Brain. Ben, because he was a pilot, doesn't turn into the thing, but he grows wings and becomes Dragonfly. I love this. Sue is the one that gets stretch powers because she's always the one stretching to hold the team together. So she becomes Ultra Woman. And Johnny, because if you remember, Johnny was a mechanic when we first meet him. And Johnny loved working on cars, so he became Mandroid. This is my favorite alternate version of them. We're never going to see this in live action, I know. But I just wanted to introduce it to you again because I'm just trying to be educational on my stuff. I love this. I love this version of them. So there's at least 2 what-if stories with this. So if you never read it, I definitely suggest reading it because they're incredible stories. Okay. Next up, oh Lord. Next up, I think we have to talk about this picture. I'll pull up this tweet I made so y'all can see it. Here it comes. I said in this tweet, I cannot take her seriously because I can't. Pull that up so you can see. So at the top, you see my words, I can't take her seriously, cannot. And then here's the actual picture. Now, that background of Galactus looks royal. It looks imperial. It looks imposing. It looks incredible. And that's what we want Galactus to look like. So they're on point with that. But female Silver Surfer, Silver Surfette. What's up, Cajun? Silver Surfette, Shalabal, Silver Surfer, whatever your favorite name for her is. I can't take her seriously. She's not imposing. She doesn't have presence when she talks in the trailer. Are you the protectors of this world? It's not like when Norrin Radd talked in Rise of the Silver Surfer. All that you know is at an end. That was Lawrence Fishburne, Morpheus himself. Just there was presence. There was, they call it aura now. There was vibe. There was weight. There was gravitas. When Silver Surfer, Norrin Radd, talked with Lawrence Fishburne's voice, he voiced the character. This child, Julia Garner, just makes me laugh. Are you the protectors of this world? I can't take her seriously. And the funny thing is, you know, I haven't figured out why people on Twitter think they're gonna like convince you, because I'm never trying to tell people what to think. I just tell people what I think. I'm never trying to change nobody's mind. I'm not. I'm just expressing my opinion. I'm just telling you how I see it. But people on Twitter think they're going to argue you down or something. I don't know. I don't quite understand that because I'm not really that kind of person. Because I know everybody can think what they want to think. You're not going to change nobody's mind. It's up to them to change their mind. All you can do is present information. So after all the arguments I've heard, no one has changed my mind about this character. This is ridiculous. This is funny. There's no weight to it. She's funny. She's funny looking. She's funny sounding. And I just can't take her seriously. She's not a threat. The other thing is, now I've explained this before, but I'm going to explain it again. Briefly, your body has a scent. There's a way that you smell when you're at rest. There's a way that you smell when you've been working out, when you're sweaty and stinky. There's a way you smell fresh when you get out of the shower. Okay? And your spouse knows all those smells. Your body has a smell. Well, your spirit has a smell too. Did you know that? Did you know that you can't hide the smell of your spirit no more than you can the smell of your body? Did you know that? And what this character is a troll. It's something just to spite the fans. They think we can't smell that, but we can. Somebody said, well, if the leaks are true and we don't see her again and we get introduced to real Nolan later, first of all, that undermines his presence since we've already seen a Silver Surfer. And she will probably take his story, which guts. Yeah, there are already female heralds. Yes, there are. More than one. And it won't be the same if he shows up later after you've already seen her. This is a troll. This is what I call spite, right? They think we can't smell that, but we can. You can't hide why you do stuff. Okay, and I just can't take it seriously because it's just funny. It's just funny to me. It's funny looking. And it's funny to me that they would expect us to take it seriously. That's also very funny to me. Like they think we're going to take this seriously. No, I don't think so. Okay. So now we're going to look at what has been colloquially called Mary Sue Storm. Okay, because that's what we're going to get in this movie. This movie is all about Sue. Okay, so Shackman, the director, describes her as the inspiring, idealistic leader of what the Fantastic Four represents. She's essentially the Secretary General of the UN. What? That's not Sue Storm. See, they're trying to have it both ways. I'm going to say it again. They think we as fans can't tell what they're doing. So they say this is set in the 60s, but it's not our 60s. It's 60s-esque, 60s-like, but it's not actually our 60s. It's not actually main 1660s in the MCU either. So they're trying to blend that aesthetic with a futuristic aesthetic and talk about what life is like back then. They're trying to have it that way, but then talk about stuff like this. Still doing the girl boss trope. Sue is not the leader of the Fantastic Four. Reed Richards is. It was his idea to go into space. Ben warned him against the cosmic rays. Sue called Ben a coward. That's why Ben agreed to pilot it. But Ben was warning all along. Okay. But Sue is not the leader. The Fantastic Four is Reed's team, Reed's family, Reed's vision, Reed's everything. Sue's not the leader. She's not. She just isn't. But now they're going to rewrite it because they got a girl boss it up. Even though it's supposedly set in the 60s, they're going to girl boss it up. And she's the inspiring, idealistic leader of what the Fantastic Four represents. No, she's not. No, she's not. No, she's not. I've heard some people say that she's the heart of the team. She's not quite the heart of the team. Ben is the heart of the team. Benjamin J. Grimm, the Thing, is actually the heart of the team. Sue is the glue that holds the team together because she's related to the most people. The leader's her husband, and then the Human Torch is her brother. Okay? So I know that makes, Reed and John related with that's about marriage or whatever. So Sue is not the leader, and she's essentially the Secretary General of the UN. What? See, that doesn't make any sense. So we're going to meet a Sue Storm in this movie who's, I don't know, connected on that level, or because if you notice in the trailer, when the Silver Surfette speaks, Sue is the one that answers. Silver Surfette says, "Are you the protectors of this world?" Sue says, "Yes, we are." All in the trailer, I want you to notice that Sue does most of the talking. So they are going to bend over backwards to, once again, push a girl boss narrative because they still haven't figured out. See, even people that used to support girl bosses are tired of it, if you didn't know that. Even people that used to think that this was a thing to do, they're tired of it. So by showing this up front, a lot of people are completely turned off. Besides the casting itself, besides Pedro Pascal as Reed, which I talked about that before, besides the entire casting himself, to make Sue a Mary Sue is just, oh, okay. Okay. Now I'm going to pull this tweet up because this is also something I said that bears repeating here. And it's this right here. In case my meaning wasn't clear, I'm a little tired of people that think that fans, especially longtime ones, have no right to have expectations. Did you hear that? I'm constantly bombarded by people that tell me I shouldn't have expectations and I should change my expectations and you shouldn't feel that way. And I've had to block some people because anybody that thinks they don't tell me how I'm supposed to think and feel, then see ya, wouldn't want to be you. You don't get to tell other people how they're supposed to think and feel. Okay. So little tired of people that think fans, especially longtime fans, because we're the ones that made this possible. We're the ones that made this possible. What do you mean by that, David? I mean, we supported superheroes and superhero comics before they blew up. Now, a lot of people give this credit to the start of the MCU to Iron Man 2008, but it actually started with Blade and X-Men. Blade and X-Men were actually the first two Marvel movies that did well enough to put Marvel movies on the map to be taken seriously and to be taken seriously by the mainstream, by the normie audience, because you can't break $1 billion box office without the normies, without the general audience. You have to have the vast majority of people come see your movie if you want to clear $1 billion in gross revenues. Before that became a conversation, because I think the first movie to do that was The Dark Knight, 2008, break $1 billion, and then the Avengers did in 2012. Before that becomes a conversation, we were the ones buying comics, going to conventions, paying the actors for, VIP photos and signed pictures and buying the merch and buying the t-shirts. And every time I go to C2E2, I come back with a boatload of stuff, because how can you go to a Comic-Con and not get any merch? That's the whole point, besides meeting your favorite stars, We were the ones doing that before it became a thing. So it is absolutely ridiculous, and I reject wholeheartedly and completely the idea that it's wrong for fans to have expectations. It's not wrong if a studio is asking you for time and money for them to be expected to give a good product, i.e. a good movie in return. How do I know that's true? Because you don't apply that standard anywhere else in your life. You don't go to a restaurant and say, we'll pay for whatever meal they give me. So I ordered steak and they brought me, salmon and fish, but just eat that. You just be happy with that. Would you do that? Would you go to the grocery store and buy some products, and when you get them home, they're rotten or they're spoiled or they break as soon as you pull them out of the package? Would you just accept that and say, oh, well? Would you just accept that? If you bought a car and you drove it off the lot and you didn't get around the corner and that car quit, the car just and just stopped. Would you take all that money you just paid and say, oh, well, that's what we get because I'm a fanboy and I shouldn't have no expectation? Is that what you would say? I'm just asking a question. Then it is not unreasonable to say, if a studio is asking me for something, what do you want from me? You want my time. You want me to leave my house and go sit in the movie theater, and you want me to watch all them commercials before the movie because you're trying to constantly sell me more product. You want that, and you want me to pay for that movie ticket, and you want me to see it in IMAX and Remax and Undermax and BMax and Betamax and ZMax, and okay, you want me to pay $20 for that, then you want me to bring my whole family, which is going to turn into $100 night if I have a big family plus snacks. Although the movie studio doesn't get that, that's the theater. You want me to do that. Okay. In exchange for that, what I want is a good movie. See, this is why stupid people don't like me, because I don't listen to stupid people. I do not listen to stupid people. Anybody that says you should just take what anybody gives you, they're asking for emotional investment and time and money. So they're asking you for three things. We want you to care. We want you to give you time is the most precious thing you have. Every 24-hour day you get is a gift. Okay, it's up to you what you do with it. Emotional energy investment, time, and money. That's what they are asking for from me. Okay, so in exchange for that, what I want is a good movie. But instead, they say, we're going to troll you. We're not going to give you what you want. We're not going to give you the long-time version of the characters. We're not even going to give you a good story. We're going to throw the message. We're going to make characters that were obscure. We're going to put them up front. We're going to turn all the white characters black. We're going to turn all the male characters female. And the male characters that we leave male are going to be incompetent and stupid and can't think their way out of a paper bag. And you just pay, and you just like that. And you just come on Twitter and talk about how beautiful that is. I'm the wrong one. That's why stupid people don't like me. Because you don't apply that frame to no other situation in your life where you give emotional investment, time, and money in exchange for just whatever crap I give you. Don't you know that's why you break up with people? Don't you know that's why marriages break up? Because if you get married, you got to have an emotional investment. If you get married, you got to spend time with them. If you get married, you absolutely have to spend some money. If it comes to a point where it becomes clear to you that you are getting nothing in return for your love, time, and money, why would you stay? So don't nobody that say they understand why people get a divorce tell me about my comments on movies and TV shows. Stupid people do not like me, okay? Because I'm not listening to your foolishness. I'm not just going to accept whatever they give me. I don't care what you say. Because they're asking for something from me. So they have to give something to me. And what they owe me is a good movie. Okay, the Fantastic Four has been around since what, 1961, 1962? And you're going to ignore the vast majority of their history. You're going to ignore the vast bulk of their stories, and you're going to pick out the most obscure versions, and you're going to change the story to make Sue the leader, and you're going to make Reed somebody, you're going to pick an actor that's not Reed in any way, shape, or form. No way on this blue-green earth is Pedro Pascal Reed Richards. He can't even sell it. And then you got the nerve to say there's something wrong with me for expecting a good book-to-screen translation. I got two words for you. Guess again. Okay? That's why stupid people don't like me, because I'm not listening to your foolishness, because that ain't nothing but foolishness. There's no other place in your life you go where you pay for a product and you emotionally invest in a product and you spend time with a product and you say, I'll just take whatever they give me. Would you go to the craft store and buy some glue and you use that glue on your projects and the glue don't work? What would you do? You say, oh, well, I know they did the best they could, but, I'm just a fanboy. And so I'm just a glue fanboy, and silly me expecting my glue to act like glue? Who could have thunk it? Expecting my glue to work. Why would I expect my glue to work? Why would I expect the characters in the movie to look like the characters I've been reading all my life? Why would you have expectations? See, I'm going to say it one more time. Stupid people don't like me. Because you keep saying, I just have to take whatever they give me in exchange for my time, emotional investment, and money. No, I don't, and I won't. Okay? Let's keep it moving. Now this tweet right here, I found very, very interesting. Now, let me pull this up for you to see. Now, I've already talked about Pedro Pascal kind of ad nauseum, but in case my meaning wasn't clear, he's not Reed Richards in any way, shape, or form. He doesn't look like Reed, he doesn't sound like Reed, he doesn't carry himself like Reed, he doesn't have aura, he doesn't have presence. No one would believe that that guy is one of the smartest men in the world, and he's subordinate to Sue. That's why they picked Pedro, because he plays that little subordinate, little man girl. He plays that very well because that's his energy, that's his aura. So he's going to play second fiddle to Sue's boss babe character, and that's what they wanted. Nope. But anyway, I like this tweet. This tweet here, I find this very interesting. He says, Dr. Victor Von Gloom, for yeah boy, says Sue's a jock. She's literally a jock. She quotes football coaches. She backseat coaches Franklin's Little League. She led the varsity swim team. She played soccer and almost got a scholarship. Please stop trying to make her a nerd. I beg you. She is sporty spice. I find that really, really interesting. That's a take on Sue, and we definitely have some comic panels to prove that. But Sue originally was an actress. And Sue originally wanted to be seen. See, many stage performers are actually introverts and very, very shy. They come alive on stage when they're doing what they do, but personally, they're kind of shy. So Sue being an actress, that would explain her original personality trait of wanting to be seen, particularly by Reed, but also being kind of shy, and also the time in which she was created. That would explain all that. So in the time where, she becomes a jock or whatever, that's cool. I don't really have a problem with that. But originally, she was an actress, just so you know. Okay? Because that's what happens when, you've heard me talk about it before, but it's called a jumping on point. You only know the characters based on when you jumped on. That's the only time you know the characters, is when you started reading them or when you watch 2 TV shows or whatever. That's called the jumping on point. That's when you first met the character. Okay. Just because that's when you first met the character doesn't mean that's the only iteration of the character. I had somebody say on my timeline this week that they retconned out the stories where Batman used guns. So it didn't count because they weren't official canon. You do know that Catwoman showed up in the first Batman story, right? Did they retcon out Catwoman? What they did retcon out of Catwoman, especially in the Batman movie, which is why I hate it, is that Catwoman has Hispanic background. Catwoman is part Hispanic. They never have talked about that. That's another reason I don't like Michelle Pfeiffer's Catwoman. They have never given you the actual Selena. Did you know that? So don't come at me with your selective canon, because you don't understand that's an oxymoron. How long have you been reading the character, or have you read the comics at all? Or have you just watched a couple of movies? Or have you just watched a couple of animated shows? Or just have you watched CW shows? Because the CW shows were nothing like, oh my goodness, CW shows were their own thing. I'm not saying they weren't enjoyable, because I very much enjoyed the first season of Arrow and The Flash. I very much enjoyed those. But they weren't anything like especially their traditional comic counterparts. Barry Allen did all that stuff himself. There was no Team Flash. Barry Allen didn't need a team when he first started out. Okay, but I digress. Okay? So I'm not saying that this characterization of Sue is wrong or bad. I'm saying it's a slice of time in her life, just like Malice. If you're not familiar with Malice, Malice is when they Dark Phoenix Sue. So I forgot who it was. Anyway, she was under mind control. But anyway, it brought out her dark side, and she became a dominatrix, just like Jean turned into Black Queen. So that's who Malice is. And Vanessa Kirby said she's obsessed with Malice. So she puts a little bit of Malice in her super trail. And I'm like, that was one of the shortest adventures in her life. Was it Psycho Pirate? Anyway, somebody took control of Sue's mind, but that was one of the shortest adventures in her life. And now they're making that front center. Okay. Okay. Now I'm going to pull this tweet up where I break down in detail what I just told you about why the Fantastic Four is Reed's story. Now, for you longtime comic fans, you know this. So this is just review for you. For those of you that haven't read the Fantastic Four your whole life, let me break it down to you. My semi-monthly post about needing to understand characters if you're going to write them. The Fantastic Four is Reed Richards' story. He's a genius that has discovered other worlds and made many inventions. But like most geniuses, he's always caught up in his own head and has little social awareness of those closest to him. The other three got caught up in the wake of his obsession to beat the Russians into space, Ben even pre-warning him about the danger of the cosmic rays. Once the accident happened, Reed thought fast to have them form a team with code names to give them purpose and a public-facing persona. Now, originally, they became a superhero team because Ben said because it's the right thing to do. Later on, we find out that Reed did that because he knew they'd be shunned, ridiculed, and captured as freaks if they didn't do that, because Reed was trying to make up for what he did to his family because of his obsession. In the aftermath, the other three agreed to live an explorer's lifestyle. They threw in with Reed and stayed with it, breaking up occasionally, but always eventually realizing that they are family in the truest sense of the word, bound by love and shared experiences, not just law. And that no one else will ever, truly understand them. So that's why I never liked the thing on the Avengers or whatever. You know, they try to fit into these other teams, but the Fantastic Four are a family in every way a group could be a family, by marriage, by blood, and by shared experience. It's Reed Richards' story. It was his drive that made them take the space flight in the first place. So throwing all that out completely changes the team. So if you've never known that, again, if you've studied them, if you've known them, read them all your life, you know that. But for those that have never had that explained to them, that's why nobody buys Pedro as Reed. He's not that guy. Oh my goodness. He's not that guy at all, in the slightest. That's why as soon as we saw that casting choice, most people were like, okay. I said in one tweet that Pedro as Reed is like an SNL skit. Okay. Now we're going to get to this thing that happened in the last week. Okay. And I'm going to pull up more than one tweet on this. But here's the big thing. They had a screening. When I say they, I mean Marvel had a screening. They did something they don't normally do. Now, normally what studios do is they only screen for shills, and they only screen for their people, and they only screen for people that they pay to go out. Those are the shills, pay to go out and write these glowing articles about the movie. And many times you can tell if a studio has confidence in the movie by when they lift the review embargo. What that means is that if you didn't know it, websites are not allowed to post reviews until the studio says they can. So if you notice, the pattern is all the glowing first reviews come out and they're praising the movie and it's the best thing ever, and Marvel's back, and 2 thumbs up and 5 out of 5 and 10 stars and the #1 movie in the world. You ever notice that? You ever notice that? That's what you hear the week before a movie comes out because the studio pays for that to happen. Then they lift the review embargo, and then we get more of a realistic feedback from people that have seen it. And then we start getting the audience scores, not just the critic scores like on Rotten Tomatoes, but the audience scores, if you didn't know how that game is played. What they did was they did an early test screening of this movie, and they let more than just the shield people see it, which is really a trip. So a lot of people interpreted that as them panicking because they wanted to know if they had to do reshoots, because they did do reshoots after this. So let's look at some of the comments. Fantastic Four First Steps, recent test screening reactions. The film received mixed reactions, with some describing it as mid. Now, some videos and some reports have said people were screaming mid at the end of the movie. And then some people said that wasn't true. It doesn't matter if that happened or not, if the movie's actually mid. Do you understand that? Whether somebody was screaming mid at the screen or not, if the movie's actually mid, whether that happened or not doesn't really matter. Describing it as mid or meh, and others calling it not that bad, but not particularly good either. That is a lot of the consensus about Thunderbolts, by the way. That not that bad, but not particularly good, not outstanding, just kind of Okay, they can't afford to have the Fantastic Four movie be mid, meh. That's not the ration we need. This movie needs to break $1 billion. This movie needs to be, because this is a tentpole movie, this movie is going to set the tone for everything that happens after this. And this movie needs to succeed critically and commercially. Okay, it's got to succeed big time, so they can't have I can take it or leave it. Viewers pointed to weak character development. Oh my goodness. Weak character development and criticizes CGI, though visual improvements are anticipated in the coming months. Now, other tweets and other videos I've watched said that they don't really develop the characters. How can you have a Fantastic Four movie that's about these 4 characters as a family and not develop them? Especially for people where this is their first exposure, this is a jumping on point to the team. How can you not develop them? That's kind of ridiculous. You have to know who Reed is to know who Doom is, because Victor Von Doom's comic book origin is tied into Reed Richards and why they're such rivals. So you have to know who Reed is. You have to know that Ben was the one that warned him against the cosmic rays, and how Reed has always carried the weight of what he did to Ben in his heart. Even when Ben got good with it, Reed has always carried guilt over what he did to his best friend because of that space flight. How can you not develop these characters? How can you not know that? How can you not know that? How can you not know that Johnny's a hothead and he's short-tempered? Sure, but he's not an idiot. he's immature, but he's not stupid. You see what I mean? Immature is not the same as stupid. I'm going to get your comments. Let's see your comments. Just want everybody to know. I see your comments. I'm going to do a comment section at the end like I always do, but I do want to talk about your comments. So how can you not develop them? And then I also heard some other comments and watched some videos that said the thing is barely in it. He's barely utilized. How can you not use Ben Grimm? I'm going to say what I said before. Ben Grimm is actually the heart of the team, not Sue. Sue is the glue, but Ben is the heart. Ben is the heart of the team. Ben Grimm is the heart of the team. He has the biggest heart on the team. He loves the hardest. There's nobody with more heart than Benjamin J. Grimm. And so they said that he is underused. Okay. Then it says that Ralph Ineson's performance as Galactus was praised and stood out as a highlight among the audience. But I also heard that the entire movie is about Galactus. And again, that's why there's no character development. It's all about them getting ready for him to show up. Okay, if that's the case, if that's really true, if those leaks are true, then I want you to understand that is the middle movie of a trilogy. Like The Empire Strikes Back. That if the movie is all about Galactus showing up and no character development, that's mean the first movie is supposed to spend time, we as the audience spend time with the characters and get to know them, like the first Matrix movie. So that when the big bad shows up or whatever happens, we already know what's going on with the characters. So if it's true that this movie skips that development and just goes straight to Galactus, then that, my friends, is supposed to be the second movie of a trilogy. Do you understand that? First movie, we get to know them, all their quirks, all their idiosyncratic behavior. Second movie, we can focus more on fighting this huge villain. So if that's the case, this movie should actually be the second movie. So they skip the first movie, which doesn't make any sense. That literally makes no sense to me, especially if this is the first time. Now, they've been on screen before. You know, we have the Underground Roger Corman movie, obviously, and then we have the 2005 movie 2007 movie, and then they tried again in 2015 with Farce, which was terrible beyond my ability to describe. So they tried again 10 years later in 2025. So if they don't get it right this time, how many more shots do you think they're going to get with the Fantastic Four? Okay. Okay. All right. So I'm going to pull up that tweet and I'm going to show you where they talk about in more detail over what I just said. Okay. Let me show you that. Because if any of this is true, we're already scratching our heads. If any of this is true, we're already like, what? I'm the guy who saw the F4 test screening responsible for some subsequent reactions. No plot leaks have nothing to do with those. I've been seeing a lot of reporting on anecdotes and facts that I recognize as my own. I wanted to debunk some misinterpretations I've heard. No one screamed mid in the audience. There was a guy next to me sighing and flopping his hands around. When the movie was over, I asked him his opinion. He said it was mid. I told the story on Discord right after I left. So they said they made up that story about him screaming mid. Okay, but if the movie is mid, that doesn't change the fact that the movie's mid, whether somebody said it or not. Okay. Although the people next to me may not have liked it, there was an employee asking around random people for their reactions. I heard a lot of excellence, the highest rating on the survey. Okay. The film is fast-paced, but not a mess. Film is fast-paced, but not a mess. I don't know if I buy that. Because if things are happening fast, that's why there's no character development. But do you know what that means in a practical sense? What that means is it doesn't really give us a reason to care. Now, there have been several theories on how the movie ends, how this plays out. Most of the theories say that they lose some kind of way. So I'm going to get into that in a minute. But if it's fast-paced but not a mess, you're claiming it's not a mess. If it's all about them just fighting and no character development, there's no stake. If this world is going to get destroyed, why should we care about it? Because we know they come into the main 616 at some point. So why do we care about this world again? See, we needed a first movie to establish that. Not 100% positive on the film, partially because I'm a hardcore F4 fan. I am too. Extreme bothered by the fact that Reed didn't turn into any crazy shapes because there's so much he can do with the stretch powers. Bothered the thing doesn't have this Brooklyn accent. Normal people in general audiences will not care about these things, but hardcore fans will. His voice, his accent, and Reed's abilities. Lack of character development is a serious concern for the film. The characters go through no growth. However, Reed, Johnny, and Sue's personality are on point. So he says, now can you see how all of that is problematic? Can you see how without the character development and with the fast pacing, that there won't be any emotional investment, especially if they lose. If they lose, why do we care about this world? So I'm going to tell you, I don't know if I saved a tweet about it or not. So we theorize that the reason the F4 are leaving their world is because Galactus wins and actually eats this world. Another plot leak, supposed plot leak, so this might be a spoiler or not, but it says that actually Sue and Silver Surfette are battling. Sue gives birth, by the way, so Franklin is there. The plot leak says that it's actually Sue and Franklin that saved the day. But Sue is battling Silver Surfette. She talks her down. I'm so tired of these movies ending with the villains getting talked down. They don't get beat like they used to get beat. They get talked down. So anyway, Sue talks down Silver Surfer, and Silver Surfer changes her mind and breaks loyalty to Galactus. And then she has some type of square that she inserts in his chest, and it destroys him. Problem is, it destroys the universe. That's why the Fantastic Four leave that verse and come to main 616 MC universe because their universe got destroyed. If that's the case, what was the point? Because in the comics, if you don't know about Reed Richards, he went and got something called the Ultimate Nullifier. Long story short, the Ultimate Nullifier wipes everything out from existence, and he held it in Galactus's face. And it's the only thing Galactus was afraid of, because if Reed did that, there would be no if Galactus survives, which he wouldn't, but if he did, there'd be no more planets to eat because it wiped out everything. Reed was willing to wipe out everything to save Earth. Again, that's Reed saving the day with the Ultimate Nullifier from the comics. You're not going to see anything like that in this movie. So if that leak is true and Surfette destroys Galactus, then whatever. That's my feeling about that whole thing, is that whatever. Okay, and Sue just talks her down. Okay, whatever. And so here's this tweet from Cosmic Book News. Cosmic Book News tweet says, two separate sources confirm that the end of the Fantastic Four is a complete disaster and their fans hated it. Two separate sources. Now, I don't make the news, I just report it. So if it really ends poorly like that and fans hate it, what even is the point? I don't see the point. What even is the point? Okay. Okay. We talked about her being the leader or whatever. Now, I want you to see this tweet. I've talked about this before, but I just want to show it to you. In case you've never seen the actual origin of Dr. Doom. Dr. Doom and Reed went to college together. Doom was trying to bridge the gap between worlds because Doom used science and magic. We found out later it's because he was trying to contact his mother. Reed found miscalculations in his machine, told Victor about it. Victor didn't listen. His machine exploded, and that's how he got scarred. So he left the university and went into the mountains and found some monks. They made his armor, sealed him in it. Okay, so you check that tweet out. If you don't know the actual origin of Dr. Doom, you're going to never see nothing like that on the big screen, which is a shame. I hate it because Dr. Doom is so powerful, and he's such a pivotal, important character. Okay? Okay, let me see. There's, yeah, they say Franklin's in the movie. Some theories I've heard say that Franklin is the reason Galactus actually comes to their Earth. If you didn't know that Franklin is actually the reason that Galactus seeks them out, because he's so powerful. And I'm like, they shouldn't be introducing Franklin in the first movie. Lord have mercy. Don't even get me started on Valeria, their daughter, because she's a whole nother trip. And Doom's involved with that too. They shouldn't be introducing Franklin in this first movie. But they do, and they will. And so, whoops. I didn't mean for there to be any sound there. So they dropped this new trailer, but I'm trying to see if it shows anything new. It doesn't really show anything new. I'm hesitant to put it up because I don't want to get, my video demonetized, but it doesn't show anything new. So it's basically the same thing. Sue's up front. She's doing all the talking. More shots of the fantastic car or whatever, and more shots of them going to the rocket launch. But just, nothing we haven't already seen. And every time I see Silver Surfette on her surfboard, hanging 10, she's hilarious to me. She's not a serious character. Just isn't. Just can't take it seriously. Okay. Vanessa Kirby talked about gender politics with Sue Storm. Let me pull that up. Gender politics with Sue Storm because that's what we wanted. We wanted a movie talking about gender politics because she's going to be talking about, a woman's role in the 60s. But remember, it's not our 60s. So they're trying to have it both ways. She's going to be talking about a woman's role in the 60s, but she's still going to be a boss babe. And oh, Lord, I'm laughing at Undead Nerd. I'm going to pull that up in a minute. And why do we need gender politics? Why in this movie? Why? See, if you know anything about the Fantastic Four, you know that Sue did not have her force fields when she first got her powers. She could turn invisible, and her most forgotten power is that she can turn other things invisible. She didn't get her force fields till later. Once she got her force fields, she became the strongest member of the team. Sue is incredible. She's definitely the strongest member of the team. So Sue Storm, as a part of the team, has always held her own. So there's no gender politics. They've always accepted her as an equal. Reed doesn't pay enough attention to her, but that's personal because of who Reed is. It's not because she's a lesser character or a person, because Reed is always stuck in his own head. That's why I explained to you, it's important that you actually understand who Reed Richards is. But the team has always functioned as a team. So I don't understand the need for gender politics. Why? Why we got to talk about that? Yet again, we haven't talked about it enough. Okay. So again, I posted the new trailer, so you can check out the trailer. There's a picture of Ben talking to Sue. Now, you've heard me talk about this before, but it bears repeating here. If you didn't know, Ben was always secretly in love with Sue. That's from the comics. That's from the first comic book. Ben was always in love with Sue. That's why when Sue called him a coward, it hurt him so badly. So what do you do when you have the dilemma of being in love with your best friend's girl? In the comics, when Ben first turns into the Thing, he grabs a tree, and his exact words are, "I'll show you that you love the wrong man, Susan." So Ben was always low-key in love with Sue, for those of you that don't read comics, if you didn't know that. So I've always been waiting for them to play that up. But I mean, I know they never will. But I've always been willing for them to play up that angle because that is such a powerful storytelling, such a powerful storytelling device. What do you do if you're Ben and you love Sue, but she's with your best friend? Do you see the pain of that? And so, so much. So, but they're never going to address that. That's a comics only thing. And there's been times in the history of the Fantastic Four where I know Ben has come close to expressing his love for Sue. But what's that going to do to him if he does, if he gives in to his feelings? Can you see the creative tension? Can you see the dramatic tension in such a thing? And most people don't even know that. So finally, I'm going to pull up this tweet. And this is by Nerdrotic. Nerdrotic is talking about, well, let me let you see it because it's hilarious. He says, "Everyone is done with the MCU. It's too bad Disney Marvel is not." That's hilarious to me. Now, he's the one that coined the phrase MCU, by the way. So Nerdrotic says, "Everyone is done with the MCU. It's too bad Disney Marvel is not." So there you get a clearer picture of the improved CGI. So-called improved CGI doesn't make any sense to me. Doesn't make any sense to me. See her eye color, and I know Shalabal had her hair coated silver, but it was just really, I don't know. Just everything about this look does not sit well with me. It just does not sit well with me at all. And I just can't take it seriously because I don't get the cosmic weight. See, the thing about Norrin Radd is that he carries the weight of his decision with him everywhere he goes. He traded the life of his planet and his beloved Shalabal for his life as a Silver Surfer. And he has brought Galactus to countless planets and watched Galactus consume them. And no one carries that weight with him everywhere he goes. He's a harbinger of death. Do you get that vibe from that face? Is that what that makes you feel? I don't. So, so I wanted to catch you up on all the stuff that's happened since the last time we talked about this and about what we can expect, because it's just like a month away. So we're going to see how it actually plays out, because, we don't know how much of this actually shows up. So let me deal with your comments. Let me put some of your comments on the screen. Is there not already a female herald? Yes. There's been 2 female Silver Surfers. Shalabal was one of them. And then also Frankie Ray. Remember Johnny Storm's girlfriend? She became a herald of Galactus too. So they could have pulled her. Frankie Ray would have made more sense than Silver Surfette. So can you imagine what happens if, again, this is the second movie, this movie they're going to show us. Can you imagine what happened if Johnny was with Frankie in the first movie they should have shot, and then Frankie leaves to become the herald of Galactus to save Earth, like no one saved his planet? And then Frankie comes back, and she's Nova, and she's still in love with Johnny, or Johnny's still in love with her, but she brings Galactus back this time because Galactus changed his mind, reneged on his word. Can you imagine the dramatic tension there? Okay. Okay, just says, I get that she, Sue's the glue that holds the group together, but she's not the leader. That's right. She is the glue that holds the group together, but she's not the leader. She's not the leader. She's not the leader. No way, shape, or form is she the leader of the group. Okay? Even though they have painted Sue as a scientist, like Albert was a scientist, or painted Sue as a jock or whatever, she is not the inventive genius that Reed is. Okay? She just isn't. Kaden says, facts, I don't see him as Reed. Pedro, nobody sees Pedro as Reed. I'm amazed at the amount of energy that people have spent trying to justify this casting choice. Now, he's miscast. He's not Reed. I know they put him in everything, and we know why they put him in everything, because he's the perfect agenda actor. He's the perfect actor for the message, because every time he opens his mouth, he's pushing the message. That's why he's casting so much stuff, but he not Reed. Okay? That's what I've been saying. People who just watch the screen and try to take control of the fandom, that's been true for a while, but we know where that started. We know where that started. Okay? People that haven't read comics, or people that have only watched a small portion of things. And just for clarity, yes, I do know that Ben and Sue have addressed Ben's latent feelings in the comics, and Sue told him that you're more like a brother to me. Yes, I do know that was addressed. What I said was it wasn't addressed on the big screen, and it won't ever be. That's actually what I said. Just for the record. Dead Nerd says, I take, I don't really care for character development as long as you show us their personalities and roles during Galactus invasion. I understand that perspective, and I'm not saying that's wrong or bad, but I am thinking about the jumping on point for people that don't really know the group. Because a movie maker, actual writers, not hacktivists, know that you have to give the people a reason to care. If they don't give us character development and they don't show us the motivation, because if the motivation is just a big bad is coming to eat the planet, that's no different than like a cartoon, like a Saturday morning cartoon. That's just an adventure. There's nothing wrong with that, but I'm saying for the emotional investment that they're going to want us to have, we need character development for that. And also for the people where this is their first exposure to the Fantastic Four, we need character development for that. So I'm not saying that what you're saying is wrong or bad. I'm just saying a jumping on point for those that don't know that much about the FF. Okay? The Thing barely being in is stupid. He's the most iconic character on the team. Johnny's the most flamboyant, but Ben is the most recognizable. Everybody knows Ben Grimm, the Thing. Okay? Galactus should have been either the big bad or the villain of an Avengers movie similar to Ultron. Right. Not even the second movie, really. Galactus should have been like a Thanos buildup because he's so awesome. He's planet destroying. Where do you go from there after you've done Galactus is the thing. So if they do him in the first movie, then everything after that is going to seem anticlimactic. I shook my head as soon as you said Franklin is in the movie. He is in the movie. And if the leak I heard was right, he's part of saving the day. And so, see, they minimize Reed Richards. If all that's true, then Reed Richards is barely a character in this movie. I can't wait to see the Shields defend Sue in silver bikini. That's hilarious. Being the only ones that defeat Galactus if it ends up in the final movie, I agree. Because you know it's going to be some hard shilling, some heavy shilling. The Shields are the people that are paid to defend it. And then you know there's going to be those Twitter rage baiters who are going to defend it just to make people mad or just to draw them into arguments. You know, just because they like to fight. You know, what's that line from The Dark Knight? Some men just want to watch the world burn. People show up on Twitter just because they're angry and they want to get other people angry, not because they're trying to have a conversation. Okay. Long story short, they could have used this to set up secret wars. This is exactly true. Now, the director, Shackman, has said that Tony Doom or Victor Von Doom in general is not in his movie. And the whole world said, why? You're introducing the Fantastic Four without a connection to Doctor Doom? Why? So this comic is correct. They could have used this to set up secret wars. What if we find out that the Doom in Secret Wars is their Doom? He leaves this dimension when he sees Galactus coming and holds up in another world or whatever. So that when this team comes from this world, the Doom they face is their Doom. Now, can you see how that gives us a deeper connection and greater stakes? How the connection between the heroes and the villain all of a sudden has more weight if the Doom of their Earth leaves before Galactus comes, and that's the one they meet later in Secret Wars and Doomsday. Can't you see that? If the MCU kept going on for a long time, do you think it's because of Kevin Feige or Disney exists? It's Feige. The latest articles and videos have been about Feige and Bob Iger arguing because Marvel has had flop after flop after flop. You can't go from having a $1 billion franchise to making movies that barely break 300 million. And so far, they've had Captain America: Brave New World, and they've had Thunderbolts this year. And Thunderbolts is coming in lower than the Marvels and the Eternals. Not the Marvels. The Marvels is the lowest of all. Marvels is 200 million. They're coming in lower than Captain America: Brave New World. I'm sorry, I misspoke. Captain America: Brave New World and the Eternals is what Thunderbolts is going to end up coming in under. And so the shareholders and Bob Iger can't stand that. So, you know, Feige wants to continue. He said explicitly, because remember, I told you, Feige is the one that said all them years ago he was going to replace half the male characters with female characters, which is why we got that shot of all the female characters in Endgame. And Feige said that was his goal. That's also why we got Captain Marvel shoehorned in before Endgame. That was Feige's goal. He said that. So the answer to that question is, I think it's Feige. He's going to continue. You know, we're about to get an Ironheart series. We're about to get a Wonder Man series. They picked the ultimate version of Wonder Man, which is a man of color. The Wonder Man that we know. It's so important that Wonder Man be white, that Simon is white, because his brother, the Grim Reaper, is a white supremacist. So changing Wonder Man's ethnicity changes the whole everything. That's Feige. Lord have mercy, that's right. I hope the reshoots include Galactus eating silver. That's hilarious. It's going to be funny if they do, though. Best way to address gender politics is one scene serves an inspiration to women everywhere and leave it at that and never address it again. I'd have to agree with that. That actually would be the best way to do it, to talk about, because that is true. And see, that's palatable. That's something that the audience can digest, and it's not a problem because it's true, but it's not hitting you over the head with it. And it's more importantly, it's not trying to make Sue more important to read because she's not. And it's not trying to make her the leader because she's not. And it's not trying to make the Fantastic Four her journey because it's not. Because she is the inspiration. See, that's why if I had my way, they would have rebooted the MCU and started with the Fantastic Four and given them their proper place as the first family. So then Janet Van Dyne and Jennifer Walters and all the X-Women, Aurora, Jean Grey, all of them could be inspired by Sue because Sue was first. So then if you make a statement like that, that's legit. But the way they're doing it now, the Fantastic Four that we end up meeting is from a whole nother universe. So who are they really to the main characters? Okay. Silver Surfette looks like she kissed a blackberry and such. Like, okay. Dave T. Geek, if you can't reliably predict how a character will react to different situations, then the character hasn't been developed enough. Let me use the GIF. This, the Thor GIF, this, that. Do you want to know the best or one of the best examples of that statement? It's the Star Trek original series movies. Star Trek, the motion picture, Wrath of Khan, Search for Spock, Voyage Home, Final Frontier, Undiscovered Country. Them 6 movies, because we knew Kirk, we knew Spock, we knew McCoy, and it was so cool watching them act the way they would act in different scenarios. This is why we have to have the character development. Otherwise, the audience is not going to connect. Okay. Make Doom the villain of F4 and then again Avengers, like Loki and Thor and then Avengers. Exactly. Exactly. What would be the problem there? I don't see a problem with that. How about instead of gender swapping, everyone make a tiger movie, or are you talking about Shanna the She-Devil movie? Are you talking about Red Sonja? But anyway, that would be funny. The MCU will continue on a lower key. They will never abandon it completely out of pride. I must say, something about Shannon She-Devil, okay. I must say that at what cost? Is it worth losing billions of dollars? Their agenda pushing has lost them billions of dollars. Do you understand what could have happened with Thunderbolts? Do you understand what could have happened if we had a Steve Rogers movie? Instead of Captain America Brave New World, Sam as Cap, they could have done Sam again as Falcon and Bucky struggling, trying to replace Steve. And Bucky realizing at the end of that movie, he'd never be Steve Rogers. He had to accept being a Winter Soldier. And then Bucky creates the Thunderbolts. You see how easily that minor tweak all of a sudden elevates the movie? Also, they should have brought Chris Evans back and done an Invaders movie. We've been screaming about an Invaders movie since the days of Age of Ultron, because Ultron mentions it in Age of Ultron. Can you imagine if we got Chris Evans and the original Human Torch, which is really funny since Evan played Johnny Storm, but the original Human Torch, Jim Hammond and Toro and Namor and Spitfire and Union Jack. And can you imagine if we ever just got an Invaders movie and Bucky when he was still young, when he was a teenager, what that would have done. But they don't want to do that. They don't want to use the IP that they have to tell good stories, to give fans what they want. What they want to do is to use superheroes as a platform for messaging. They want to take a platform that already has a lot of eyes on it, and they want to shove their message in. White men bad. Women are better than men. The replacement character is so much better than the original character. No respect for the classics. So all the stuff that they do. White characters should be black. Straight characters should be gay. Whatever. that the empire that Stan Lee built, the way he built it, wasn't good enough as it is. It should be like this. That's what they want to say because that's what they believe. That's what they use superhero IP for, not to tell good stories. And so to them, it's clearly worth losing billions of dollars to do that. So I don't know what to say to that because I don't know any other business or industry that actively works against its own best interest. It's hilarious that Wonder Man, arguably the whitest character in Marvel, got race swapped. It's poetic that his name is Wonder Man, like White Wonder Bread. And again, his brothers are white supremacists. So it's essential to the character. So that's why I told you at the top of this video, when I saw White Panther, that Black Panther's a white man, it just made me laugh. Because comics have now, they're parodies of themselves. Comics now are a farce. That's why the name of this is The Fantastic Farce, not just this movie. The comics now are farce. They're parodying themselves. It's like an SNL skit in the books. It's like a Mad magazine in the books because they're so committed. They're so committed to their agenda, which is white man bad, white man is the devil, men in general are bad, women are superior, women are better in every way, all male characters need to be female, women need to be in charge, straight characters need to be gay, white characters need to be black. Just that whole thing. So they're going to give us Ironheart, which is going to flop because she flopped in the comics. Because she's so much better than Tony Stark in every way, whatever. Wonder Man is going to flop because that's not the sign that people want to see. They're committed to this. They're committed to this, y'all. So I don't know what to say. Every time another industry does that, it messes them up so badly they have to come back and apologize. Gillette did it. Gillette put out a commercial that bashed fathers, and then men just threw their hands up and said, "We ain't buying no more Gillette products." Who was that just did it? It wasn't Mercedes. Who was it that just did it? Anyway, they just did it. They did a woke rebrand, and everybody was like, "What is this?" And messed up their sales. Ben and Jerry's did it. Jaguar, thank you, Dave. I couldn't think of it. Jaguar did it. They did a woke rebrand and messed up their sales. Ben and Jerry's did it because they got out there being political. And everybody's like, we just want about ice cream. But they said, no, we have to push our politics. Okay. And of course, the biggest cautionary tale of all time is Bud Light and Dylan Mulvaney. They did it. They just put his face on a can. But the head of Bud Light got on a video and said, this has been a fratty, male only, male bro, immature, beer joke kind of thing. And we need to change all that. And then Bud Light became the most banned beer in America. Nobody bought Bud Light. By the way, they have never recovered. They haven't fully recovered, by the way, if you didn't know that. Bud Light has not recovered from the Dylan Mulvaney thing. So I'm saying that to say every time a company, instead of making their product, gets political, it hurts them. And they keep trying to do it. I don't understand that, but my company, my brand, my product, the me that you see is actually me. I love comic books. I love superheroes. That's why I write them. I started off my life drawing superheroes. I still have my various comics that I drew. That's actually me. That's why I do this stuff, because I love this stuff. That's me. I'm not trying to push an agenda. The only agenda I have is hopefully to share my love of comics with other people, with other readers, because that's how I learned how to read. One of the things I learned to read on, and my father did that for me. That's my only agenda. But I'm saying you keep having these companies. So I don't think Marvel, so let me tell you, I said this last week, but I'll say it again here. What I think is going to happen is Marvel's going to push things to the point where they have to sell the properties off again. Remember back in the 90s when Marvel was broken, that's why they licensed the rights of Spider-Man to Sony and Fantastic Four and X-Men to Fox. Remember why they did that? That's what's going to happen again. They're going to so run the MCU in the ground until they're going to have to license off their properties again. That's what's coming. That's how the MCU is going to end. That's my prediction anyway. They're going to run this thing in the ground. They're going to chase away so many people until they can put any movie up there and nobody's going to want to see it. Okay? I'm surprised they didn't cast Leslie Jones as Mole Man or Hunter Schafer as Red Ghost. Under Nerd, you are cracking me up today. Leslie Jones as the Mole Man. Hunter Schafer as Red Ghost. I really like both Mole Man and Red Ghost, but I would want to see accurate translations of them to the screen because they're such incredible characters. So, okay. Yeah, Invaders, but not with Cuckoo Khan. Okay. Unfortunately, we see Hispanic Namor in Invaders movie today. I'm down for Asian Namor at least. Yeah, Namor would be more likely to be Asian more than anything else. But they would use Namor. That's not Namor, and I can't stand him. I can't stand him. I was hoping Franklin Richards be around. You mean like the Jedi Rock in Star Wars, the High Republic, Geo the Rock Jedi? Okay. Bud Light gave Kid Rock, Dana White, and Shane Gillis a buttload of money to try to win back the regular Joe again for Bud Light. That's right. Didn't work though. They tried to get him back, but they haven't recovered. Excuse me, they haven't recovered. They messed up. Okay. And we'd get a non-binary Mole Man. That's true. We probably would. In case I never told you, I have a script for a Fantastic Four movie. And so I hope one day I get to make it. I hope one day I get to bring it to life. But I do have a script for a movie that I've written that I'd like to see with them. Okay? So, yes, I'm going to see this movie, and yes, I'm going to review it. But I'm going to see and review it for discussion purposes, not because I'm excited about it. And this was a team that got me into comic books. Isn't that a shame to have the movie about the team that got you into comics and you're not excited about seeing it? But anyway, I am going to go see it. And I'm going to be honest, like I always am. I'm not going to, overhype it if I didn't think it was that good. And I'm not going to overbash it if I thought it was really good. I'm going to tell the truth as I see it. I'm going to be honest, like I always am, about how I feel. I'm not trying to tell other people how they should feel, ever. I'm going to be honest with you about how I feel. Okay? So if some more stuff happens, I guess I have to do another video, but I'm amazed. Okay, I'm going to get that Galactus bucket now. That was so cool this week where we saw the Galactus bucket that's, almost like 1.5 feet, maybe 2 feet tall. The bucket of popcorn. How could you not want that? Dave D. says, Fantastic Four was a gateway comic for lots of people. Thumbs up. My thumbs disappeared. Thumbs up for that. One of my first comics was a mini comic reprint of the first F4 Spider-Man crossover. That's right. Spider-Man, his team affiliation has always been with the Fantastic Four, not the Avengers, for those of you that don't know that. When Peter first came on the scene, he went to Reed Richards. And they accepted Peter like family. Okay, so the connection between Spidey and Fantastic Four has been there in the comics, literally from, I think, like Spider-Man's 4th issue. So if you just watch the movies, you don't know that. You'll probably never know that, which is my point. Okay, so that's it for me today. I want to thank everybody that joined me live. You guys are great, and I love reading your comics and discussing them. For everybody that's watching this on the replay, I want you to leave me some comments below the video. Leave me some comments below because I want to hear what you have to say about what we're talking about today, about the leaks that we've heard, about the reaction to the test screening, about Silver Surfette, about the theories on how the movie's going to end and how they get to our universe, and just what you think about that. Okay? Isn't Herbie also getting a bucket? I don't know, but I don't like Herbie, by the way. I never have liked Herbie, but that's just me. So I ain't getting his bucket, but that Galactus bucket needs to be owned. Okay, so that's it for today. Thank you so much for tuning in. I will be here next week, same time, for my next weekly live comics chat, 10 a.m. Central Standard Time. All right? DT2 Comics Chat out.